Struggling to pay your child support? Are not receiving any? Need a modification? Has the Department of Revenue filed a case against you? Don't face this alone. If you are dealing with a child support problem, a knowledgeable family law attorney may be able to help you solve it. Let us help so you can focus on being the best parent you can be. Stress less, choose more. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our Q&A session with a board-certified immigration attorney. My name is Conti Smith. I practice family law in the Central Florida area, and I will let Frank introduce himself as well.
I am Francisco or Frank Symphorien-Saavedra. I practice immigration law in the Central Florida area as well, and nationally.
And he was just on the news.
I was. It was. Well, not. I mean, you know, never. It's never fun when I'm in the news. It's never a good story, right? We were discussing the Alien Enemies Act as well as the IRS cooperation agreement. It was on ABC News, so it was cool. I mean, it was national, right? But it's crazy, right? That they're discussing IRS. I mean, Social Security system is in disarray, you know, and it's collapsing. And now and immigrants help, right? Support it. And now we've got these people saying they're going to share information, and and it's going to discourage immigrants from filing taxes, which they're required to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, if people want more information about your national news appearance, where can they go to find that information?
They can go to Symphorien-Saavedra Law, or they can also follow us on Facebook. Symphorien-Saavedra Law, Symphorien Law. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. That's the site.
There we go. Awesome. So today we're just doing some questions and some answers. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments, and we'll do our best to answer them. One question that we have from someone that gave this to us, I believe yesterday, was, I'm in a relationship that I think is over, but I have only my 2-year residency and need to remove the conditions. What can I do to get a divorce but still get my 10-year green card? And so this is a question for you, Frank, because you need to give the immigration background about how that impacts them.
Yeah. So this is tricky. I mean, and we get this a lot, right? The immigration fraud amendments back in the 80s created this thing where immigrants, when they marry a U.S. citizen, they get a 2-year conditional residency. And at the end of the 2-year conditional residency period, they're required to file a petition. Usually it's a joint petition with their spouse, asking the government to remove the 2-year conditions and extend it to 10 years. So traditionally, the burden of proof, even though sometimes can be tricky to get the government to acknowledge this, but when you file it with your spouse, you kind of have the upper hand, right? Because the marriage is still together, and you're saying we're still married, and we married in good faith, and we want to remove the condition. So that is the easiest route to get the 10-year card. However, obviously, that sometimes that doesn't happen, right? You're in a situation where you need to divorce. The law provides for 3 exceptions to the joint filing requirement. The first one is that you enter the marriage in good faith, but you divorce. The relationship didn't work out, and you have a final divorce decree. Right? One of the exceptions. The second one is that you are the victim of abuse. And the third one is that you would be subject to extreme hardship if so. The most common use, right, is the divorce. And even though it doesn't put you in the best position, but if marriage is over and you need to move on, you probably don't want to pretend. You definitely never want to file to remove conditions and pretend to be together with your spouse, right? I mean, if the relationship ended amicably, you could file it jointly, but and you don't have a formal final divorce decree, if he agrees to sign it, you could file it even if you're not together and just tell the truth to the government. The problem with that, usually it gets delayed because it takes like 48 months to get this thing removed, to get the 10-year card. So if you file it jointly with your spouse, the issue is that at some point in those 48 months, he's going to want to separate or formally divorce. He's going to want to move on with his life. So usually what you want to do is just go ahead and file for divorce. Nobody's going to stick around for 4 years. But document and work with your family attorney to have, first of all, never if the marriage was in good faith, it should never be an annulment, right? Because the annulment sort of eliminates the validity of a relationship altogether. Uh, and you want to fight that if the spouse is trying to pursue an annulment. But you want to file the divorce. And as part of the divorce proceedings, I would sort of strongly encourage you to make sure that you get, some written affidavit in detailed and specifics that outlines, how the relationship evolved, and that, you're still in a good faith you were in a good faith relationship, but things just didn't work out, right? But it needs to be really detailed and specific, because again, what the government is looking at when they created this statute in 86, they created this sort of like look forward period. They wanted to have a 2-year window where they could kind of still watch you and make sure that you didn't walk into the green card interview and came out with the card and then immediately like went your own way, right? That suggests that there was fraud at the outset when you went to the interview. So they want to have a 2-year window where they can still pull you back and claw back that green card if you act in a way that suggests fraud. But if it was 3 months, 6 months down the line after the interview, you tried to hang in there and the relationship didn't work out, it's tricky. The longer the better, right? You kind of want to say, hey, it was a year after the interview, we hung in there, or a year and a half, right? And things, or 2 years, things didn't work out. You kind of want to work through the relationship, the time that it deserves, since you got a green card out of it. Relationships, marriages shouldn't be entered into lightly. But once it's over, just push with your divorce attorney, and I'd strongly recommend you contact Conti. It's an amazing family attorney.
Thank you.
To pursue divorce and to get something in writing from your spouse that, hey, we worked through things even after the interview, got your green card, we were still together for another year, another 6 months, another 2 years, but things just didn't work out. And even put through, in there any specific you can, like we went to counseling, we did this, we did that, we did whatever, so that you can attach that to your petition, to your request for a waiver of joint filing requirement, along with the divorce.
What I'm seeing right now are, and I just refer people to, talk to an immigration attorney, call Frank's office, but it's a lot of people, especially in this climate, that are kind of like holding things over people's heads, right? And there's like, where they're threatening this and they're threatening that, and people are afraid because they don't know what to do. So this is very helpful to say, well, go ahead and file for divorce. Like if you're miserable, if if it's not working out, you don't have to subject yourself to that, for to their demands for the next however many years. I think that's a big question that people have, is like, well, do I have to stay married? Do I have to put up with this? How will this impact my immigration status? Like that's a lot of what I'm seeing people calling and asking us. And I'm not an immigration attorney. That's why we do these with you.
Yeah,
but they really need to talk to an immigration attorney about their rights and what their options are. So this is helpful.
They definitely should. And one of the second subject, exception that I didn't qualify, which kind of you brought up a good point, which, it is important that that you remember that the statute allows for, we married in good faith, but the divorce is final, which has to, you have to file it in the 2-year window, like in the 90 days before the second anniversary of your green card, when you have that conditional green card. But there's also a second exception, which is people who are victims of abuse. Mm-hmm. And the statute recognizes abuse as physical as well as extreme mental cruelty, right? So if somebody is, and the government manual that discusses what counts as abuse. Well, there's a lot of psychological and emotional abuse. If they're controlling you and they're taking away your keys and telling you can't go anywhere, or they're threatening you that they're going to call immigration, and you're living in constant fear, and they're holding that over you and they're pushing you. I mean, it could, in many situations, it can count as causing extreme mental abuse. And you don't have to wait the 2 years for that, right? So if you're married in good faith, you do have to prove that you married in good faith as well. And that's why some people don't always do that. But if you go to the interview and then you get home and the guy's abusing you psychologically, or even before,
what about financial abuse?
Yeah, financial abuse counts. I mean, they look at the whole picture. If they're controlling you in any way, they don't want to let you see your family. They don't want to let you go home. They don't want to, they're controlling where you go, what you do, what you eat. You look too fat or you look too skinny, whatever. Like that sort of, psychological abuse counts. It doesn't just have to be physical. and it's at any point during the marriage. I mean, the main requirement is that you're married to a U.S. citizen and the person is abusive. So it does allow. Now, there's been some abuse of this. So this is not for everybody. It needs to be people who are in legitimate abuse, because the government is looking at this. And one of the things, Conti, that's out there in the community that people have been abusing for some time is because this allows people to waive the requirement that they enter the U.S. legally, try to get a green card. So there's this TikTok, and there's notaries, and there's Facebook people who are committing fraud by saying, they call it's arreglar sin salir, which is fix your papers without leaving. And so they're kind of, conjuring up abuse. But and this is sad, right? Because it creates this sort of situation where people who are really victims of abuse then are now subject to extreme scrutiny. So I don't say, what I'm saying, you need to file this if you're the victim of abuse, but be aware that the government is going to look at it, make sure that it is real abuse. But you don't have to stay in there. And if you married him and 6 months later things changed and he started abusing you or controlling you and really attacking you, you don't have to wait the 2 years. You don't even have to have your green card. You can do it, you can self-petition as a victim of abuse before the 2-year period, and even before you get your green card.
Okay. All right, that was helpful. That's
some people think I have to go to the interview, I have to take the abuse and all that because I don't have my green card yet. No, you don't. If you have, obviously you should document what's going on. Keep the text messages. Don't lose the text messages. Don't lose the videos. Don't lose the audios. Don't lose, whatever the person is doing, and have some proof of this. But no, you don't have to wait for your green card interview. You don't have to stay there and suffer the abuse. This is exactly the situation the Violence Against Women's Act was created to help.
Well, that's helpful for us family law attorneys and for the people in my firm, because we're getting these questions a lot. It's not just family law questions now, it's family law, but I also have an immigration issue, but I'm afraid to do this because of my immigration issue. And so people are being manipulated and they don't have to subject themselves to this abuse anymore. So I'm glad that we clarified that. They still need to talk with the immigration attorney, still call Frank and have him assist you, but that's some very helpful information to have. Now, Frank, another topic that I'm getting a lot of calls about, or that we're trying to figure out how to advise clients on, are when people are getting they are using like the spouse contract, or there's someone sponsoring them. And I don't, what's the form for that?
It's A64. It's like the affidavit of support is what they call it.
The affidavit of support. And so when one of the intake attorneys was looking at the affidavit of support, and it's like, well, hold on. This divorce does not stop your obligation to support someone if you signed an affidavit of support. So if you could just kind of go over the affidavit of support and just kind of talk about what that means. And then I think we could even show a couple of pages to kind of talk about your obligations and how if you get divorced from somebody and you sign this, you are still very much on the hook to support them. So Frank, if you could just explain that.
Yeah, so just to give you a quick overview of it, right? When you marry a foreign person and you're a U.S. citizen, government requires that you file a petition on their behalf and you sponsor them. But part of the process that you have to go through is you have to prove to the government that the foreign person is not going to become a public charge. They're not going to become dependent on the government. And part of your obligations as a sponsor, as a petitioner, as a U.S. citizen, sponsoring their wife or husband, you must provide this form. This form is I-864, which essentially is a contract between you and the government. The government is a third party to this contract, essentially, and the beneficiary, your spouse. You're agreeing to support them up to 125% of the poverty guidelines for a period. And this is the other part that people don't get. They think, hey, if I divorce or if this does not end until you either get 40 work credits of Social Security. The beneficiary, right, gets 40 work credits of Social Security work history, which you usually get only 4 credits per year of work until the person becomes a U.S. citizen or until they divorce, right? So, and it doesn't include, and this is in the federal regulations, federal statute, doesn't include anything in there about divorcing alone, right? So divorce, well, I mean, Conti, you can talk about it, but really this is a contract law issue. It's almost not so much as a family law issue. And the problem with this is it's a federal regulation that you're signing. So so you have to sign this form where you're agreeing to support your spouse. The government gets a copy of this form that's signed by you and your beneficiary, your spouse, and the government keeps that in his record. So should you in the future, should that the beneficiary, right, the foreigner, the non-citizen need any governmental assistance, et cetera, for their support and their maintenance, the government can technically come after you for those benefits, whether it's food stamps or whether it's any cash assistance. Government can technically come after you to subrogate, to demand that you pay those benefits. Additionally, it's important to know, and people don't remember this, there are attorneys in the country that specialize on representing immigrants to enforce this specific contract on their behalf. So you are potentially a target of beneficiary. If you divorce, you separate, or whatever, beneficiary can use this form to require and demand that you support them financially, again, until they become a citizen, until they get 40 work credits of Social Security history, or until they.
And I think on the next page of this form, on page 9, it talks about so when will the obligations end? Like you said, become a citizen, receive the 40 quarters of coverage, no longer a lawful permanent resident status, and has departed the United States, is subject to removal, or you die, or that person dies. This is a major commitment, right? When you sign this. And so on the form below it, you see it highlighted, note, divorce does not terminate your obligations under this form. And so we've been getting calls at our office where people are asking, well, what can I do? If I do a prenup? And I mean, we could do a prenup, but the government, this doesn't stop the government from still coming after you.
Right. And I mean, as I said, this is a federal regulation. It's promulgated under United States code as well. So I mean, I don't know. This is really more for you, Conti. I don't know if I've ever heard of anybody being able to put this aside.
Well, I don't think. I mean, it's just a matter when people are calling us is yes, we cover the prenuptial agreement. However, whatever contract you sign or that you signed or you're going to sign is going to we can't stop that the government from coming after you or that the beneficiary for coming after you. And so it's just something to keep in mind, especially as family law practitioners, when people are calling and they're having these questions about that. Like the form clearly states that divorce will not impact this. And so if you have a prenup, I mean, you can ask that, the beneficiary indemnify you. I don't know. There's things you could maybe do, but I just don't know how. I feel like you're still on the hook for the obligation.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I mean, everything I've read and researched and understood about this form is that it is enforceable. And I don't think, I mean, I don't do family law, but I don't think, I mean, it's a federal issue.
Yeah.
I don't even think you can set this aside. It's even tricky to set aside in bankruptcy court from what I've read in some situations. So it's even tricky to put it aside on that. So, yeah, it's a really significant obligation, right? I mean, I guess it's in some ways sort of similar to alimony or whatever, right?
Well, yeah, I guess
divorce, right? To establish, and the divorce doesn't end it, and a lot of people may not ever remarry because of this. I don't know, like, I mean.
It's a major commitment, to say the least. Yeah. If you're signing this is a major commitment. But what we're seeing are just clients like asking questions. Well, if I do a prenup that says no alimony, and I'm like, oh, okay, you could do that, but this is not necessarily alimony. This is an obligation that you have with the government, and so it's just something for. I think of always like 90 Day Fiance, and you watch those shows, but it's. If you sign this and someone comes over here and they start needing government assistance, the government can come after you. How often do you see that happen? Like just because I'm curious, Frank.
So the government, I've been practicing this for 17 years, and I've never seen the government come after anyone. But I have seen beneficiaries, right, the non-citizens, sue the petitioner the U.S. citizen for support under this. And I presume you probably, I presume you've seen it in divorce proceedings, or I don't know.
No, I mean we haven't really. I haven't really seen it. We're getting more calls about it right now in consultations. We're having people having questions about it, but I haven't personally dealt with this issue.
Have you tried to use it though? I mean, because I think it's also, I don't even know, is it enforced in federal court or state court? I don't know. Can you use, like, if you represent the non-citizen in a divorce proceeding, I don't know if you could potentially use this document to require the U.S. citizen spouse to pay additional support obligations.
I mean, that's an interesting question, and I will ask, and we'll talk about it. But now that there probably are a couple of cases where this could help the client, but I don't know if the state. I mean, that's a great question.
I think it's filed, from what I've read, Conti, I think it's filed as a separate proceeding in district court.
Yeah,
US district court, so which obviously doesn't have jurisdiction over divorces. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think if you ever represent the non-citizen, you could definitely use this to your advantage, right?
I mean, yeah, but I still think that the law is the laws as far as like the family law part. Like this to me is beyond the family law. This is what you signed to bring them over. As far as the immigration process.
Yeah, well, I was saying if you represent the non-citizen, right? Like if you ever represent the immigrant, the spouse that you don't represent signed this, right? So, but I mean, I don't know if you could.
I mean, it could. The law, from my perspective, the law is the law. Like, so the way that we look at alimony is based off of certain factors, right? Need and ability to pay. There are certain statutory factors that we look at when determining alimony. So that would be like a separate issue from this issue, right? So like if they were married for 20 plus years and had a long-term marriage in Florida, well, then we would go through the different factors that we look at to say, oh, well, you're entitled to alimony, or they have the need and they, you have the ability to pay. So it's a different analysis, as far as like this. This is just like a separate contract agreement that you have that could be enforced, as well. I guess the issue would be, well, would that if that person got alimony, would that constitute support for the purposes of this? I don't know. Great question. We need to find out.
I think it's 100. I would think it would though, right? Because this only requires that you support the beneficiary up to 125% of the child poverty guideline. So if the alimony exceeds that marker, you should be okay, I would think. But if it's under, but we don't know, right? I don't.
I'll call you when we get to. I'm like, hey,
I mean, yeah, that's a contract. It's not really an immigration issue. It's almost a contract, federal district court contract issue. But yeah, I mean, if you ever want to expand your practice area, you could potentially do that.
We're good. We're busy over here, Frank. We're busy. But this is just good to know for those who are considering sponsoring someone, and for those who are considering Saya's affidavit. You really want to read all of the fine print and understand exactly what you're signing up for. It's not, oh, come over here, we're going to break up and I'll just move on. You could still be financially on the hook for the person you sponsored years down the road.
Yeah. And it's a real big commitment. Definitely.
It is. All right. Well, thank you so much, Frank, for joining us and answering at least my questions. We will do this monthly. So if anyone else has any questions next month, we will be here to answer any questions. We encourage people that have questions about divorce, immigration, other family law practitioners that may have questions about immigration and how it impacts some of the issues that they're seeing in their cases. Please join us. It's a great resource. It's a free resource. We want to be here to get more information into the community. So thanks again, Frank, for joining us. If you need a board certified Florida immigration attorney, please reach out to Frank. Like he said, he takes cases in Florida and nationally. And so he is a great resource, very knowledgeable. And go Noles. We went to law school together. So we're FSU Seminoles. So go Noles.
Hopefully we'll have a better year next year, football season.
Yeah. Hopefully.
But I just want, I want to say, I thank you, Conti, for inviting me and for hosting this. I think what you're doing in the community in Orlando is tremendous. And I appreciate, I'm always singing your praises. I mean, if everybody needs, any help with any family law issue, child support, custody, etc. I mean, Conti been doing this for 17 years. She's exceptional. She just really knows her stuff, and is really passionate about helping families, and she's just amazing. What she does. I've seen her. I've seen a lot of family law attorneys say that they're good, and talk the talk, but not everyone can walk the talk, and Conti definitely does that.
I appreciate that, Frank. Thank you so much. Join us next week. It's the last Wednesday of the month. We will be doing these. Please, any questions you have, ask them. We're here to help. Everybody, take care.
All right, take care.